What's going down, everybody? I'm Genaro. That's Duran.
How's it going?
All right, so welcome to our channel. First and foremost, hope everyone's safe and staying healthy and staying cool-headed with everything going on. With today's episode, we're going to touch base over the NFC North, and that division has the Chicago Bears, Detroit Lions, Green Bay Packers, and the Minnesota Vikings. We're going to start off with Chicago Bears. Let's go over their best free agent acquisition or offseason acquisition, I should say, because they could trade and whatnot. All right. So who do you got so far for the Bears, Duran?
The Bears, their best addition. I went with Cole Kmet, the tight end from Notre Dame,
The
and
ninth tight end.
I I was just looking back at some of the stuff, and I went with him mainly because of Matt Nagy's offense, and he loves to use the tight end. Going back to his time at Philly and Kansas City, he had Travis Kelce, of course, but he also had Brent Selleck. They're
Yeah.
always number one or number two on their team in targets.
Mm-hmm.
And now Komet is the very first tight end he's ever drafted. So,
Oh,
I think,
wow. I didn't know that.
yeah, I think he'll, coach's pick. He wants to make coach happy, and coach wants to show off his new toy. So last year, the Bears didn't have one tight end with 100 yards on the whole season. Everyone was under 100, which is pretty amazing. I know that they added Jimmy Graham, but he's 34 years old, and I think age is catching up to him. He ranked outside of PFF's top 40 tight ends the last two seasons. So I think Komet will just provide a big body target. He's a decent blocker and should mold into Nagy's long-term solution at tight end.
You think we're going to see a lot of 12 personnel going on with them?
I don't know. I'm not big on Jimmy Graham. So, I mean, I know it takes a while for tight ends to develop and get on the field
Mm-hmm.
and start getting at it. So I can
Mm-hmm.
see Jimmy Graham starting off the season as their starter, but we'll see. We'll see.
Yeah, I mean,
Might help the quarterback too.
I'm curious because they have a battle royale going on it with tight ends. They have 9 tight ends on the
Yeah.
roster right now, which is pretty crazy.
Yep.
So with my favorite free agent addition, I went with Robert Quinn. I went with Robert Quinn because this guy, first and foremost, what he's going to do is he's gonna feed off all the double teams that's going on with Khalil Mack or what have you,
Yep.
and they have to focus on one guy. And with him, with the nickname Black Lightning, like he's just gonna explode off that edge and get out to the quarterback when he can. And I think he's gonna benefit a lot off that right side. As you know, last year he was with your guys, the Dallas Cowboys, and the fact that he had there with the fact that he had there with alongside D-Law, I think he's gonna be even better with Khalil Mack because Khalil Mack, I mean, is a little bit better than D-Law in my opinion. So with that, I mean, I think that he's my favorite free agent addition going on with the Chicago Bears.
Yeah, I think he's, a little bit of a one-trick pony, but he's damn good at that trick.
Exactly.
He just gets to that edge, and he has pretty damn good bends. So, yeah, that was a good addition.
I was actually kind of hoping that maybe the Niners would kind of look at him as well because he's so fast off that edge, and the only guy that we have on the depth chart for the 49ers is D Ford that has it off the edge.
Mm-hmm.
But, I mean, he's a high-priced free agent, and he deserves it because he's a baller. So, I mean, I understand why Chicago wanted to swoop that up and have that duo of him and Mac. So it's pretty exciting to see. So,
yep.
All right. So with their biggest loss, who do you have for the Chicago Bears?
So for the biggest loss, I went with HaHa Clinton Dix. He moved on to Dallas. It's funny because they ended up pretty much swapping Robert Quinn with HaHa Clinton Dix. I mean, minus the contracts, but a nice little trade went down there. But the Bears had a pretty good, solid secondary last year with one of the best safety duos, Eddie Jackson and HaHa Clinton Dix. Now they're missing 2 starters from their secondary. The other one's Prince Amukamara. But Haha played over 99% of the snaps and graded out as a PFF top 20 safety. He played his best in coverage, but now the Bears are trying to replace him with 30-year-old Tashawn Gibson, which he hasn't ranked inside the top 40 safeties the past 5 years. So I think that'll be a big drop off there. The Bears added a little bit of help to their secondary in the draft, but it may take 1 or 2 years for these guys to develop back there.
Yeah. It was kind of hard for me only because I did want to say Prince Mukamura, but like you said, they did address it. They did address that need in the draft for sure. And
Yep.
yeah. So, but with the, I wanted to say Nick Kwasinski as well, but they already have Roquan Smith and Danny Trevathan right there, so I'm not really thinking they're bad in the eye of him leaving.
Yep.
Yeah, he's a tackle machine, and the Raiders did, grab a baller for sure. But I think I think I have to agree with you by saying Clinton Dix as well. With the duo that he did have with Eddie Jackson was very underrated.
Mm-hmm.
But it was a quality one at that, and so. Yeah, with everything you said about Clinton Dix is something I have to piggyback on and agree with you on.
Perfect.
All right, so we already went over one of the draft picks. That was actually their first draft pick with Cole Kmet.
Yep.
You want to go ahead and read off the rest of the draft picks for them? Who they got?
So they didn't have a first round pick. So their second round pick they went with Cole Kmet. In the second round, they also went Jalen Johnson, the cornerback from Utah. Then they didn't have a pick all the way to the fifth round. They went Trevis Gibson, the Tulsa outside linebacker. Also in the fifth round, Kendall Valdor, Georgia Southern cornerback. Another fifth-round pick, Darnell Mooney, Tulane wide receiver. And 2 seventh-round picks, Arlington Hambright, Colorado tackle. And Lashevious Simmons, Tennessee State offensive guard.
All right. So who do you got for your favorite draft pick of theirs?
My favorite draft pick of theirs, I went with Jalen Johnson, and he's one of those guys that's going to step in and try to help rebuild the secondary. He should step in and compete with Artie Burns for the number 2 cornerback spot. I
think he'll take it.
Yeah, I mean, Artie Burns hasn't been too good the last couple years. But that's opposite of Kyle Fuller, and Buster Screen's going to be playing the slot. But, yeah, I expect him to beat out Burns. The Steelers let him walk. He's not lived up to his first-round selection. Jalen has the size, physical traits to play outside press corner. He gets his hands on the ball. He averages 1 pass breakup per game at Utah last year. And he'll be a good piece of this secondary. Gets to pair up with that front 7 too. That is going to be putting the heat on quarterbacks. Khalil Mack, Robert Quinn screaming off the edge, and he'll fill in that piece after losing Prince Mukamura.
Yeah, for sure. I think Jalen Johnson is going to fill in nicely for Prince Mukamura, and I actually think he's going to beat out Artie Burns for sure.
Yeah.
It sounds like his shoulder's doing fine now. I know he had off-season surgery, but it's the toughness of this kid. I mean, he played all last year. Even I know he didn't have his best game against USC, and that's when Michael Pittman had his breakout game pretty much. But he was also playing with a torn labrum, so that speaks enough to his toughness.
Yep.
But so you touch base on him, which is one of mine, but another one of mine is actually Kendall Valdor. I know he's from Georgia Southern. He's more of a project, kind of has raw talent and whatnot. If you look at his 2018 compared to his 2019 tape, so it's better because in 2019 he did play against some quality receivers. I think he had LSU and Minnesota on the schedule last year, so I mean they had pretty high quality guys there. So I think what he's going to do is eventually push Buster Screen for that slot corner position, and, we'll see. So, I mean, he does have some development, so maybe this year will kind of be his redshirt year.
Yeah.
But I think in the long run he's going to be actually a quality starter at nickel, being that nickel defense is kind of the base defense nowadays.
Nice.
So, actually, my favorite one was Kendall Velder. Sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say I like Buster Screen. So if he could push and fight for that position, then he'll be pretty damn good.
Yeah, he's actually one of the underrated slot corners, I think, too, Buster Screen. He broke out. Who was it with? I think he broke out first with the Browns, and he went on to the Jets. But yeah, he's solid all around for sure.
Yep.
All right, so that brings us to the Detroit Lions. So the Detroit Lions, who was their best offseason acquisition?
The Lions, their best addition, I went with Jeff Okudah. I mean, you couldn't ignore it. Cornerback, Ohio State. They picked him at number 3 overall in the draft. He'll come in and help replace Darius Slay and Rashawn Melvin. I considered Jamie Collins and Desmond Trufant here, but Okudah will be their long-term investment. And they hope that he turns out to be an all-pro. I mean, with a top 5 pick like that. In 2019, the Lions tied for the lowest amount of interceptions with only 7. They gave up the 4th most passing touchdowns with 33 and the most passing yards per game. They gave up 284 yards per game. So Okudah is a great piece to build a secondary around, especially in a division that has guys like Devontae Adams, Allen Robinson, Adam Thielen. So he's going to get thrown into the fire, that's for sure.
Yeah, I mean, the NFC North has some ballers at receiver, especially one of my favorite ones with Devontae Adams. So he's going to have his hand full. Yep. It's going to be pretty exciting to see him against him going to man coverage against them. But for my favorite free agent addition, or offseason acquisition, I should say, I actually went with one of the slyest guys in the NFL. It was Chase Daniels. I went with Chase Daniels because these guys last year, when Matt Stafford went down, they just looked lost. They had to, really get the help from David Ballot at one point. So I think with Chase Daniels being a veteran of the game, learning behind, great quarterbacks such as, Drew Brees, Alex Smith at one point, Pat Mahomes. Yeah, he sat behind, the who's who at NFL. So I think with him shoring up that backup quarterback position, that's definitely going to help him more than what people think. Once one veteran quarterback goes down, I hope he doesn't with Matthew Stafford, another one can step in, and he's actually pretty solid. He can win you a few games. He can keep you competitive. So I think they have to rely on defense if Stafford goes down and Daniels if it comes in. But then, but that is my favorite, off-season acquisition. It may not be the, flyest one like, Jamie Collins, whatnot, but I think it's actually kind of solidifies that quarterback room for sure.
Yep.
So their biggest loss, who do you got?
So for the biggest loss, I went with Graham Glasgow, the guard. He went to Denver. I thought about Slay, but he got replaced by Jeff Okudah. So Glasgow comes in. He's been a PFF top 15 guard the last 2 years, playing in over 80% of the Lions snaps. He'll now be replaced by a third-round rookie, Jonah Jackson, who's great for what the Lions want to do, which is run the ball, but it'll be hard to replace a player like Glasgow right away. The Lions actually traded up to get Jackson because they knew that they had a need that they needed to fill right there. So I'm kind of curious to see how Stafford does this year behind this line. Last year, Stafford was on pace to throw for 500 yards or 5,000 yards and 40 touchdowns before he got hurt. So now it's a more run-centered team, but I know Stafford could still sling it with that arm. So we'll see.
Yeah, that was kind of hard to look past. I mean, it was kind of hard between Slay and Glasgow, and you can't bat an eye because if you just look at the talent that they brought in to replace Slay and the talent they brought in to replace Glasgow doesn't exactly add up, because I feel like, Jeff Okudah is one of the best. Yeah, he's actually one of the highest picked cornerbacks in the NFL. I think he's going to be a solid, cornerback for sure. So I'd have to go with Glasgow as well. Not really knowing what Jonah Jackson can do. I mean, yeah, he was a bully at times, but I mean, yeah, got to be Glasgow. So yeah, I agree with you 100%. So our favorite draft choices of the Detroit Lions. So go ahead and read off.
I'll read down their draft picks.
Yep.
First round, they got Jeff Okudah, Ohio
Yep.
State cornerback. Second round, DeAndre Swift, Georgia running back. Third round, Julian Okwara, Notre Dame outside linebacker. Another third round pick, Jonah Jackson, Ohio State guard. Fourth round, Logan Stenberg, Kentucky guard. Fifth round, Quintez Cephas, Wisconsin wide receiver. Another fifth round, Jason Huntley, New Mexico State running back. Sixth round, John Pensini, Utah defensive tackle. In the seventh round, Jashawn Cornell, Ohio State defensive end.
Nice.
So for my favorite draft pick, I ended up going with Okudah again. He was just one of my favorite players in the draft, and he's coming from a cornerback factory like Ohio State. It's kind of easy to project him in the NFL. He was a consensus All-American. He led his team in interceptions and pass deflections. It's, for the stuff that I previously said about him being the best addition. I mean, what more can I say?
Yeah, exactly. I went with Jeff Okudah as well. He's definitely, you can't look past it and say, like someone like DeAndre Swift, because they got Kerryon Johnson as well. I mean, yeah he's injured, but they also double dip, which I think is pretty interesting. When I was looking over their draft choices and trying to figure out who my favorite one was, actually one of the guys that I was, introduced to by our buddy Zach was Jason Huntley. This guy's breaks tackles. I actually think he had the highest broken tackles out of any running back in the draft. So that was pretty interesting to see. So they're going to I don't know if they're going to try to do a three-headed monster or have him, just returning kicks and punts and whatnot.
Yeah.
But that was pretty interesting. But all in all, Jeff Okudah, that was actually my favorite draft choice as well.
You got it. Both of those running backs that they drafted are 5'8". So they're pretty small guys, or short guys. But they got DeAndre
Swift. Oh, wow.
Yeah, DeAndre Swift, Kerryon Johnson, and then they got the big guy, Bo Scarborough, in there, and then Jason Huntley. So, yeah, they have some running backs there.
Scarborough did well for them for what he can do. Definitely coming out for how big he was. I think everyone thought he was going to be like a Derrick Henry as well, but he ended up not being that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't realize how crowded their running back room is now, and especially with some short guys being at 5'8". I thought Swift looks a lot bigger than 5'8", so that's pretty crazy. I didn't know that he was only 5'8".
They have him at 5'8", 212 here on ESPN's website.
Jeez.
Well, all right. Well, that takes care of the Detroit Lions. Let's move on down to the Green Bay Packers.
So for the Green Bay Packers, their best addition, I went with Rick Wagner, the tackle from the Lions, because they needed to make up for the loss of Brian Bulaga. He's not the best replacement, but I like this addition better than any other draft picks. Wagner signed a team-friendly deal and ranked inside PFF's top 25 multiple times since 2015. I think that they thought it was better than making Brian Bulaga the sixth highest paid right tackle in the game. So they kind of avoided a long-term contract and picked up a solid guy to replace him.
Yep.
Although I don't think it's an upgrade, he'll provide solid pass blocking help for Aaron Rodgers in this offensive line.
For sure. Yeah. My favorite addition of the Green Bay Packers is actually a linebacker, Christian Kirksey. They lost Blake Martinez. I think he's now with the Giants. But Christian Kirksey comes over for them from the Cleveland Browns, who was actually released. Watching this guy, it was actually funny because a lot of I actually like this guy, and it comes from watching him on Hard Knocks. If you watch him take leadership of that room, of everybody, even when they had Kendricks on the team. Kendricks is coming from off of the Super Bowl ring, actually with the Eagles, and a lot of the leadership actually went to Kirksey. So that's saying a lot right there. So I think what Kirksey can do is take hold of that linebacker room when they need help and help stop the run. Because if you see them in the NFC Championship, they were getting ran all over the place. And Blake Martinez, I wasn't really doing his job. So, yeah, even though the free agent addition at that guard spot is actually solid, I think it's actually an upgrade at the linebacker spot, adding Christian Kirksey over, to replace Blake Martinez.
Okay. I didn't see that Hard Knocks where Kirksey was on there.
Yeah, he was on there when the Browns were on it. I think it was Baker's rookie year.
Well, for the biggest loss for the Packers, I ended up going with Blake Martinez, and he went off to the Giants. So Blake Martinez for the past 3 years has just been, producing tons of tackles, over 144 combined tackles each of the last 3 years. He was pretty solid in coverage too. I know he's being replaced with Christian Kirksey, and to me, they're kind of different linebackers. I know Blake Martinez, he's kind of faster and played the pass a little bit better. Christian Kirksey was more like I've seen him come off the edge, providing some pass rush and playing against the run better. So like you said, they got ran all over. So he might be an upgrade in that way. But I expect Kirksey to have a bounce back year, but he won't be able to replace what Martinez did in pass coverage.
Yeah. All right. Well, I think their biggest loss, in my opinion, was actually Brian Bulaga. This guy was been with the team since 2010 when he came out of Iowa. His 2019 stats, he played 198 snaps, which is 33rd overall. He only had 6 penalties, which is 35th overall, and in 2019 he actually only allowed 4 sacks, which is pretty low. They didn't really address. I know you said that they, added somebody, but he's got a big shoes to fill with Brian Bulaga, and Brian Bulaga has been a staple on the offensive line for a long time. And I know they had some, changes throughout the years, especially with that new offense. They need to be a little bit more athletic, a little bit more faster and whatnot. So kind of bringing in the younger and kind of weeding out the older. I think the guy on that original line left is actually Bakhtiari.
Yep.
So, we'll see how the line goes. See if they will miss him or not. But in my opinion, I think their biggest loss is actually Brian Bulaga, the veteran.
Yep, makes sense. All right. So as far as draft picks go, the Green Bay Packers, the first round, they got Jordan Love, Utah State quarterback. Second round, A.J. Dillon, Boston College running back. Third round, Josiah DeGuara, Cincinnati tight end. Fifth round, Kamal Martin, Minnesota inside linebacker. Sixth round, John Runyon, Michigan guard. Another sixth round, Jake Hansen, Oregon center. Another sixth round, Simon Stepnack, Indiana tackle. Seventh round, Vernon Scott, TCU safety. And another seventh round, Jonathan Gavin, Miami defensive end. So with my favorite draft pick, it was kind of hard to pick because I didn't really like their picks, but I went with A.J. Dillon, the running back from Boston College.
That was a surprising one to me and you. We were watching that draft together, and we saw his name come across the board. We were just like, wow.
Yeah, and they had opportunity to get, some help at wide receiver. They could have got T. Higgins. They could have got Michael Pittman. They could have got Isaiah Wilson or Logan Wilson to help at linebacker. So they passed up on a lot of guys in this draft, which kind of surprised me. But it seems like they're planning for the future. I went back and watched some of A.J. Dillon's tape, and he's built pretty solid. He has big, powerful legs. He played in a pro-style offense in college, so I think the transition will be pretty easy for him. For how big he was, he even showed some sneaky speed. So I could see how he appealed to the coaching staff. He just provides like a big downhill running style for the team.
Yeah, definitely. If you look at that guy's thighs, I mean, they're about as big as your waist, man.
Yeah, they're huge.
They're huge. He's definitely one of your old school running backs, actually. Definitely one of the old school ones. I mean, being at 6 foot, 250, I think it was.
Yeah, I got
It's
6
pretty
foot,
crazy watching
247.
him. I mean, they're obviously going to use him for. He excelled in humongous. He actually excelled well in short yardage and whatnot.
Mm-hmm.
I just think he needs a little bit more help. Being agile and whatnot. Agility didn't really scream and look at you, but definitely a surprising pick. But my favorite pick was actually Jordan Love. If you look at again, one of the guys you have to look at his 2018 tape to figure out what kind of player he is. But he definitely has all the traits. A lot of people are comparing him already to Pat Mahomes, but that's trait-wise. I mean, I don't think they have the same arm strength and whatnot, the same vision, or even the same improvisation. I mean, see what Pat Mahomes can do out of a scramble. We have yet to see that from Jordan Love, but he's definitely one of my favorite picks because if you look at the way that Aaron Rodgers was groomed behind Brett Favre, was that success where he is now. I think that benefits a lot from sitting behind a Hall of Fame quarterback like Brett Favre. So I think that for the future, I should say, it definitely was going to benefit. It's going to benefit Jordan Love sitting behind Aaron Rodgers. And what this essentially does is, it pisses off Aaron Rodgers, but reading all the articles that were written and listening to all the interviews from the skill position players like Devontae Adams and the running backs as well, the duo running backs we do have back there, they all say a pissed off Aaron Rodgers is a scary Aaron Rodgers. So I definitely like to see some kind of, grit in this guy, see what he can do to help push Aaron Rodgers, even though I don't think he's taking his spot from him anytime soon. But I think, if anything were to happen, they have a stud sitting behind him for sure.
Nice.
All right. So that brings us to the Minnesota Vikings.
So the Minnesota Vikings, for their best addition, I went with Justin Jefferson, the wide receiver from LSU.
Same
he has
here.
big shoes to fill with Stephon Diggs leaving. They actually replaced him with the first-round pick that they got for Diggs from Buffalo. But so the comparisons will always be there. Do I think he'll step in and be equal to Diggs? No, but I do like his skill set and ability. I loved his play in the red zone. He has good route detail, and he has the ability to work the middle of the field. I saw people say that he plays the slot, or he can only play slot, and that might conflict with Adam Thielen's role in the offense and something like that. But I see no problem with pushing Thielen to the outside, letting the kid take over the slot. I mean, Adam Thielen's an all-pro. He could play anywhere on the field. So I think it should be a good little duo for Kirk Cousins if Thielen could stay healthy this year.
Yeah, he was actually my favorite free agent addition as well, or not free agent, the addition of the team. The one thing I do like is that you highlighted there is that he was actually the pick that they got from Buffalo, so that comparison's always going to be there.
Yep.
So I like to see how that's going to be. If you're going to replace anybody with Stephon Diggs in the draft, I mean, they missed out on Jerry Jeudy, but I mean, Jefferson is a close second. He's going to be an instant impact starter at the NFL level. He brings size, route running, reliable hands, and quickness as well. He doesn't, but you can't really mistake a slot receiver, like you said, because he does have experience from on the outside as well.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm definitely interested to see how they're going to use him, throughout. Is it going to be, taking some reps from Thielen at slot, or is he going to stay strictly to the outside? It's pretty exciting to see. They got a versatile weapon right there. So if you're going to replace him with Diggs, you want to go with somebody that's kind of like Justin Jefferson, and they got him.
Yep.
So the biggest loss we got.
We probably got the same player on this one. Stephon Diggs to Buffalo. I mean, we just talked about the guy that's going to try to replace him, but he was once part of the best wide receiver duo in the NFL. He and Thielen were what most quarterbacks wished for. Diggs' route running, consistent hands, yak ability, it all got him ranked in PFF's top 20 wide receivers the last 3 years, including top 10 in 2017. He just never seemed to be happy there. I don't know what it was, if it was the coaching staff or contract. I know they redid his contract a couple times, but he finally got his wish and moved on to the Bills. To me, it kind of seems like a lateral move for him, maybe even a downgrade. I mean, I think he would excel more in that indoor stadium that Minnesota has. I think he'd do better with a precision throwing quarterback to take advantage of his route running. And, that's not what Josh Allen is known for. But he has a clear path to be the number one receiver on the offense. Maybe that's what he wanted, but their biggest loss to me, of course, was definitely Stephon Diggs.
Yeah, same here. I mean, you said it. We both agree on this one. Stephon Diggs is one of my favorite receivers in the league right now, all because of his route running. Like you said, he wasn't really happy there in Minnesota. He had sent a lot of cryptic texts or tweets on Twitter and whatnot, saying, I'm out of here and whatnot. So I figured, he was going to leave last year, but he actually finally got his wish granted, and he's now a Buffalo Bill, which, to touch on your point, was actually pretty surprising that he went with the Bills, only because, Josh Allen isn't exactly accurate. I know he's they're doing a lot of workouts right now together, but Josh Allen's got to find his way to fit that ball at the exact point. Kirk Cousins definitely had a good relationship with him, but at the same point didn't have a good relationship with him. So it was all confusing because at one point it's like, hey, give me the ball, and when they gave him the ball, he excelled. So I don't know if it was maybe a Stefanski type of play call. So we'll see. But yeah, I agree with you on everything, with him being the biggest loss to the Minnesota Vikings.
Yep.
All right, so let's go over Minnesota's draft real quick.
So in the first round, the Vikings picked Justin Jefferson, the LSU wide receiver. They had another first-round pick, and they got Jeff Gladney, TCU cornerback. In the second round, they got Ezra Cleveland, Boise State tackle. Third round, Cameron Dantzler, Mississippi State cornerback. Fourth round, they had 3 picks: DJ Woonham, South Carolina defensive end; James Lynch, Baylor defensive tackle; Troy Dye, Oregon inside linebacker. In the fifth round, they had 2 picks: Harrison Hand, Temple cornerback; KJ Osborne, Miami wide receiver. In the sixth round, they picked Blake Brendel, Oregon State offensive tackle; Josh Metellus, Michigan safety. In the seventh round, they had 4 picks: Kenny Wilkes, Michigan State defensive end; Nate Stanley, Iowa quarterback; Brian Cole the second, Mississippi State safety; Kyle Hendon, Washburn offensive guard.
All right, yeah. So out of those picks, who do you got for your favorite one?
I went with Jeff Gladney, cornerback from TCU. Mike Zimmer loves his DBs, and they also needed to restock at that position. Last year they had Xavier Rhodes, Trey Waynes, Mackenzie Alexander, and all of them left. They led the team in snaps, and none of them are going to be there this year. So Gladney's going to have to step right in and play. He makes up for his 5'10", 190-pound frame with awareness and ball production. He posted 12-plus pass deflection each of the last 2 years in college. So, yeah, he should be an immediate starter, teaming up with Mike Hughes, who has yet to play a full season. So Zimmer's going to have his hands full with these young guys, but gladly provide some help in that area.
Yeah, I mean, I couldn't not say Justin Jefferson for everything that we did touch on him already. So
Yeah.
he's definitely one of my favorite draft picks. But Jeff Gladney, he was definitely, I felt, one of the best cornerbacks in this draft for sure. So like you said, he does make up for his 5'10" build. He's feisty. So we'll see what he has to do there, especially with them losing a lot in the defensive backfield. I didn't realize they lost Mackenzie Alexander as well.
Yeah. So, yeah, they got some positions they got to fill in there. That's for sure.
Well, all right. That pretty much concludes this episode, unless you have anything else to say.
Nope, that's it for me.
All right. Well, that concludes everything on NFC North that we have to say regarding their best offseason acquisition, their biggest losses, as well as their favorite draft picks. So stay tuned for our next episode where we go over the NFC South. So, yeah, you guys have a good one. Stay safe out there.
Later.